introduction and for the opportunity to speak here. I've honestly been coming to this for like 4 or 5 months, so not even that long. And every single time I come, I'm pleasantly surprised at the quality of the advice and really how practical it is. There's so many places that you can go and find information, but it's hard to find stuff that's actually practical that you can use in real time. The things you learn in this meeting, you could start doing tonight if you had the inclination to do it. So I'm grateful to kind of continue that theme, and hopefully you find the information that I'm going to share today at least somewhat practical. I'm also excited about being here because my mission as a business person is to help businesses communicate more effectively with their potential customers so that they can earn more customers. Because at the root level, what we do as business people is we solve problems, right? And if we can solve more problems for people, then we're kind of making the world a little bit better each time we do that. So I'm excited to be here to help you guys earn more customers and help people improve their lives as well. So, all right, enough about that. I've got that out of the way. Let's talk about Google Ads. So, well, before we talk about Google Ads, just a couple little notes about me. My name is Chris Overlay. I've been doing digital marketing for about a decade now. My experience is all over the map. So I've worked as an assistant to chief marketing officers in the real estate investing world. I've worked for agencies. I've worked for myself. And I've worked as an entrepreneur. I've started a couple companies, and that's been over the last decade, right? I graduated from here, UNLV, in 2013. And if you do the math, that means I was working when I was in college. So I was actually working in the marketing world while I was there. I had a full-time job and kind of got things going at that point. You can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube. You can find me on Facebook and that kind of stuff too, but I don't go on Facebook that much anymore. Really, it's Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn. The firm that I'm now a partner in is Catapult Digital. And I put this stuff up here not to try to be a sales pitch or try to boast or anything like that. By no means will be a large firm. There's a few of us that work there, but I put these numbers up there just to show you that we're not nothing. We manage a pretty good amount of money, and we generate a solid amount of revenue for our clients. And I wanted to share that with you so you know that who you're listening to up here knows a couple of things. By no means do I know everything. In fact, that's the next slide, is I don't really have all the answers. But what I'm going to hope to do today is show you what we do with Google Ads, what we found to work, and hopefully that guides you in the direction of things that you can apply and at least helps you avoid some pitfalls out there. Because there are many, many pitfalls, and we see it all the time. We bring on new clients and they're like struggling with ads. I mean, how many people here have run Google Ads and have wasted money? Yeah, it happens, right? It's almost unavoidable to waste some amount of money, but the idea is to try to make more than you're wasting. And we've seen it time and time again that happens, right? So hopefully the things I'm going to show you today can show you how to waste less and earn more. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to talk about. We'll start out with setting yourself up for success. And really you should read conversions. The main theme, if you take anything away from today, is that you need to set up conversions properly and then optimize for those conversions later. So the first part of the presentation will be about setting up those conversions initially and how to track those within both analytics and AdWords. Then we'll talk about keywords and how you should be doing your research, how many keywords you should be putting for each service, how you should really be thinking about your services and keywords, and then we'll go into account structure. So what do your campaigns look like? What do your ad groups look like? How do you bid? What's the best way to bid? How do you position your ads in the search results? We'll go through all that. Then we'll talk about optimization. So once we learn how to structure accounts, eventually going to run these things. So how do you make decisions on your ads and with your keywords so that you're getting closer to more money and less waste, right? Then I threw this at the end too, because what's might happen by the time you get done with this is you may say, well, I don't really want to become an AdWords pro. I want to understand how it works, but I don't necessarily want to become a pro. But how do I know how to hire someone that knows what they're doing? Because there's another form of waste. I mean, how many people here have hired somebody, a marketer, that's wasted their money? It happens, man. I've hired marketers that have wasted my money because I'm looking for someone to help me with work, and they waste my clients' dollars. That was a long time ago. It's like that, 8 years maybe. But the idea is that what I want to try to share with you is how to source people, what to look for, and when you should be really thinking about hiring a pro. Okay, how to set yourself up for success. Like I said, conversions are everything with ads. So what do I mean by a conversion? I mean a real conversion, not a landing page view, not a made it to the contact form. I mean filled out the contact form, purchased, called me. Those are real conversions. And unless you set those up properly inside of analytics and inside of AdWords, you're wasting your time. So let's actually look at that. Let's jump into an analytics account and show you where you actually find conversions.
Maybe you need to log in.
Nah, I'm logged in.
Okay.
It figured it out. So let's jump into the home here.
Can you guys see that? Make
Can you
it
zoom just a little?
Yeah.
Hit the 3 ellipses in the upper
Yeah.
right.
Up there
There we go, sure. Zoom.
to the right. There you go.
There we go. Better?
Yeah, much
it's
better.
More?
Quite a bit better.
Feel like I'm at the icon.
There we go. Let me see here. It's still not giving me permission, so let's try this. I may just need to log in this way. Okay, great. So, how many people here have analytics, Google Analytics set up on their website? Okay, good. How many people know where you go to find goals inside of analytics or set up a goal? Okay, there's a line right there. So, goals are super important within analytics. Where you go to set those up is you come to your main analytics, you log in. Down here on the bottom left, there's a little admin wheel. You click the admin wheel, and you open up your admin settings. Go all the way over here to the right and see goals. So if we click on goals, we already have a few set up for this account, but this is where you would set up your goals. We have a goal set up for contact forms and for phone call clicks, arguably the two most important for a service industry. If you're in the service world, you want to collect contacts and you want to get people to call you, right? You can set up other goals too, like by clicking this button, you can jump in here and do all sorts of stuff. You can set up goals for duration on the website, like if you want to measure how many times somebody spends 2+ minutes, you can set that up. You can set up e-commerce goals too, which are in a different area, which I'll show you in a second, especially for the e-commerce guy who want to know how to do that. You don't have any goals set up for your e-commerce shop right now?
Not for Google, no.
Okay, so this is going to be amazingly important for you. Really, here's my bit of advice on goals, is that although you can set up all sorts of things, you can look at certain pages, maybe you have a 3rd level page like in your funnel, it's 3rd level down, you want to know how many people make it to that 3rd page. Those are maybe helpful for you understanding UX and how to kind of structure your content, but when it comes to optimizing your ads, they might not be that valuable. In fact, we don't think that they are. And maybe you could argue that, but for the purposes of the conversation today, your real conversions matter. Contact form completions, phone calls. So you can set up other goals, but really you shouldn't be tying them to analytics. Or excuse me, you shouldn't be tying them to ads, Google Ads. I want to say AdWords. I keep wanting to say AdWords. But you don't want to tie them to ads. And I'll show you how to import the two in a second, but you want to focus on your real conversions here. Now, how do you set up a conversion like this? There's an easy way, and then there's kind of a more hard way. The easy way is to, for example, with a contact form, is to set up a thank you page for that contact form. You guys know what I'm talking about. If you click submit, you're redirected to a page that says, hey, thanks for submitting the form. That's the easy way to kind of set up a conversion. I'll kind of show you how. You can come in here and say new goal, name, we'll call it just like contact completion. We'll do a destination, continue. Destination, I would say regular expression, because if it equals to, you've got to put in exactly what the URL is, and sometimes it might not be that. There may be little tag things on there. You may be doing Facebook tracking or even Google URL tracking, and the URL will be exactly at that. Also begins with, how hard is it going to be? You're going to have to every URL begins the same, right? So unless you're running subdomains, and that's just not common. So really regular expression is the way to go, because what you can do here is just say, if the URL says thanks, then that's my thank you page. And if the thank you page is the only page on your entire website with the URL that says /thanks, then anytime anybody comes to that page, this system will track it as a conversion. Later on, we're going to show you in ads, you'll be able to see at the keyword level, keyword, AdWord, location level, how many of those things are resulting in conversion. And the conversion equals for a contact form, they made it to the thank you page. You guys following me on that so far? Making sense? Okay.
Is that regular expression that's only relative to the URL though, right?
Right. So it doesn't matter if the content on the page, you know, if your URL has to have the thing in here. And maybe it's not things, maybe it's completed contact form or something like that.
Not to interrupt again, but
Yeah.
how smart is it? Like if you had a URL that was /sales / something else and you put sales in there, is it going to differentiate or does it have to match like both of those?
That's why I use regular expressions, because your URL could be like a mile long.
Yeah.
As long as it has the word thanks in it, this is going to count as
There are websites where you can test regular expressions, you know, so you can
Okay.
try to test them.
Mhm.
All right, thank you.
Good question. You can assign a value and tie it to a funnel if you want. If you know that on average, anytime you get a contact, that contact is probably worth $100, then you could tie that value in here, although you don't really need to. In fact, we rarely do that, so I'm not even gonna worry about boggling your mind in that direction. Really, values are more of a ROI, cost per acquisition conversation, which we'll have later in the presentation, but values are more important for e-commerce. Speaking of e-commerce, let's just cancel this. And what you would do, so before we get to e-commerce, just to finish this thought, you'd save, and then this is like what I would do here is verify this goal. And we don't have a page like that inside of this website, so there would be no verification on this. What you could do though is make sure that your conversion is triggering here. If you have a brand new website, you can say, okay, I know that URL is things, let me save this conversion. And let me see if I save this, I'm not gonna mess this up. Yeah, so we got the contact completion. You could go to your website, fill out a contact form, get to that page, come back to analytics and say, okay, it triggered. If it didn't trigger, then you've done something wrong. Phone calls, so we'll get to e-commerce in a second, but since we're on this page, phone calls are a little bit more tricky. You can track, if you've ever been on a website, you clicked a number, and then it automatically opens up like the call. You can track that within Google Analytics, but it's a little bit harder. The way I would do it is I would use a system called Google Tag Manager. And this is Tag Manager.
Yeah, I think we could talk about Tag Manager next time, right? So,
Yep. You know, I wasn't going to get into super detail about it. I just wanted to show you the Tag Manager is here and tell you how I do Tag Manager stuff. If I know I need a certain goal set up, I literally type a Google search in, how to phone call conversion, Google Tag Manager. And Google literally has all kinds of stuff for you. So if we just type this in, how to phone call conversion, or let's type in goal Tag Manager. And it sounds like a cop-out, I'm saying Google it, but I'm serious. This is how we do it all the time. And the reason behind it is that it's hard for me to remember all the stuff you have to do in order to set up the conversion properly. There's like little snippets of code that you have to copy and paste in. It can get kind of technical, but also Google's changing up how they do things all of the time. Like Manny said a second ago, it was AdWords, now it's Google Ads. They change their programming up every year a couple of times, and things aren't where they used to be all the time. So just doing a quick Google search on how to do something will save you a ton of time and a lot of headache. It's also not a bad idea to, if you're really not excited about the technical aspect of it, you can jump on a service like Fiverr or Upwork and spend 30, 50, 60 bucks to have someone come in and set all your goals up for your entire analytics. And that's a pretty cheap and affordable way to do it and save you a bunch of time. Where I would definitely think about doing hiring someone is when the e-commerce setups comes into play. So e-commerce setup is a little bit more tricky. If it's less tricky if you buy a website from like a box kind of pre-built thing like Squarespace or Wix or Shopify. They'll have this code pre-built into their system. All you've got to do is type in like one code, like your UA code for analytics, and it'll automatically do all your e-commerce setup. These boxes help with that. It's kind of an advantage of using one of them. But if you're using like WooCommerce or a custom website solution, you're trying to do e-commerce tracking, this gets hard. In fact, I don't even want to get into the details on it because I don't do a whole lot of it. I'm not a huge e-commerce dude when it comes to analytics. I would hire someone on Fiverr or someone on Upwork and say, hey, I need my conversion set up with e-commerce. Can you do this for me? And they would knock it out. Then, of course, you got to test it. So with any kind of conversions you have going, run everything through a test. And this is all before you start advertising. And it's important to think about this stuff because all the decisions you make at the advertising level are going to be based on these conversions. And if the conversions aren't set up right or they're not triggering and you don't understand how they work, then you're kind of wasting your time with ads. So anyways, e-commerce is set up there. All you would do is kind of just flip this switch and then go through the process of installing the code where the code is supposed to go. Okay, so that's kind of setting up the goals. Once you have your goals set up, the next thing you've got to do is go into AdWords or Google Ads and connect them to your ad account. So does anybody here, how many people here have a Google Ads account? Okay, some of you guys don't have them at all. It's pretty easy to set one up. You just go to ads.google.com, and as long as you have a Gmail account, you can use the same one as your analytics account. You just start going with Google Ads. So I'm going to skip ahead. I'm not going to go through the how-to process of starting an ads account because it's kind of boring, right? They have a step process for it. They make it easy for you. I'm going to jump ahead to the point where you are ready to start connecting some conversions in there and building out your ad campaigns. So we kind of have a template account here. Is what I'm showing you. There's no data in it right now. But once you have your conversion set up in analytics, you have to come to this tool icon here. You click the tool icon and you need to link your analytics account to your AdWords account or Google Ads account. That's how you know someone's been doing AdWords for at least like 1 year, is that they call it AdWords. So once you get to here, it's pretty simple. Go to analytics, go to details, and then any analytics account that you are signed in as with your email address, which mine's up here, you have access to it here. All you would do is find the one you need, and if you're running just one business, one analytics account, it should just be the one in here. You click link, you make sure that this is switched, this enable for client account. What that means is that it's going to make sure that analytics and AdWords are sending data back and forth, which is really important for e-commerce, by the way. Once you link your account, you come back to this tool icon, you come into conversions. Right now this is going to be blank, but you would hit add conversions. And you would import your conversions from analytics. So you hit this import button, Google Analytics, and continue. This is going to tell me I don't have any right now because I haven't linked an account yet. Normally there would be a couple here. Anything you put inside of that analytics account, so over here, we go to our goals, any one of them that are here would be available in that spot. Which, here's a distinction to make. You know what we talked about a second ago, that you could set up goals for like time on page and funnel location and that type of stuff? You don't necessarily have to import all those conversions to ads. So you can have 10 or 15 goals inside your analytics account if you find that to be valuable, but inside your ad account, you only pull over the real conversions, right? So let me show you what that looks like in like a real account. So let's open up a different one of these. So we come up here, conversions. This account's got several conversions set up. The ones that say analytics, we imported those over from analytics, but you can create other conversions as well. One conversion I would for sure create is a call conversion. And that call conversion comes from the site link extension, which we'll go over extensions later when we're talking about ad building. But essentially, what that means is that you put a phone number on your ad, and anytime somebody clicks that phone number, they call you directly. It only works on mobile devices, but you want to set it up as a conversion inside of your conversion tracking section, so that later on, when you're looking at your ads and your keywords, you can look at that and say, okay, this keyword or this ad is resulting in a call conversion, therefore I want to optimize accordingly. But that's another one to put in there. You can do other fancy stuff too, like local actions. Like for example, if somebody goes onto Google My Business page and says get directions, you can track that as a conversion, which is kind of more useful nowadays now that map pack is getting more popular within Google Ads. So those location conversions are kind of handy. And I'm gonna fall back on the search on Google thing. If you wanna learn how to do a certain conversion, you wanna track something, run a Google search for it and how to do it. Because they're always changing the stuff. You may have to install a little bit of code or something like that, but really the big ones are contact form completion, phone call, and then phone call from ads. If you have those 3 conversions inside your ads account, you're gonna be miles ahead of most businesses that are out there. Follow me so far?
Can you repeat that?
The best conversions you should have are a contact form completion, a phone call, and then a call from ads, from the extension. Those 3 are the big ones. For e-commerce, you're gonna wanna have purchase conversions, which you can set up, you can do like a new conversion here, and you can do like website, and you can set up the process for purchases here. As long as you have your e-commerce thing set up inside of analytics, and you have that done, and it's tracking and all that stuff, if you follow the process here to do a purchase conversion, that stuff should automatically float into ads. And what you'll be able to see in ads is like at this level, you'll be able to see, let's go here. You'll be able to look at a list like this, and there'll be a column for revenue, and you'll be able to see how much revenue each campaign is bringing in if you have your e-commerce set up, which is mega important. If you assign values to your goals, if you say a contact form is worth 150 bucks, and you get 3 contact forms, that means that particular campaign that resulted in 3 contact form completions is worth, what's 150 times 3? 450, right? If you assign values to that. But it's harder to do that in the service world because how valuable is a contact form? Is that person actually to close? So on and so forth, right? But e-commerce, e-commerce is real important for this kind of e-commerce, the goal conversion inside of there. So you can look at your campaigns and your AdWords and stuff we're gonna get to in a second.
Chris?
Yeah.
Are there benchmarks for like what that conversion rate would be on the service side?
On the, well, it matters in your industry. So, what do you mean by conversion rate? Let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So, you go through, you reach your goal of having a phone call, but you don't know whether that phone call resulted in a sale or resulted in whatever it was you wanted back.
So, absolutely. What you're looking at there is like a close ratio.
Yeah. So
what we would do, and then, what we do with anybody who's in the service world is we try to say, okay, what's your close ratio on contacts coming in? If somebody fills out a form on your website, how many of those are you actually closing? Well, let's say something like 25%. 25% would be pretty good if you're closing that much. You can back trail that up through the ad account and say, okay, we're getting 4 contacts coming in. Averages say that one of those is actually a sale. So when we do our ROI calculations later on, and we're saying, is this ad account resulting in enough revenue to justify the ad spend? You have to factor in that close ratio there. A tool that can help make that easier for you is a tool called CallRail. So I'll just pull this up. CallRail is kind of neat because what it will allow you to do is place phone numbers on your website that you can tie to specific lead sources. So you can set up a phone number that comes only from ads. And when somebody calls that number, it's recorded, and in the CallRail system, you can see what keyword resulted in that. And you can say this was a closed deal or this was not a closed deal, all on that back end. So as a business person, you can really get granular and understand which keywords you're producing, how the phone call went, was this a real lead or not. Maybe you determined, and this happened just recently for us, we determined that a certain group of keywords were resulting in many calls, but the calls were not valuable to the business. They were just kind of people that weren't really interested or whatever. So we were able to shut down a certain portion of the spend on certain keywords because we were able to listen to those phone calls, and the manager on the business side was flipping like switches that said this was good, this was not, this is qualified, this is not qualified. So that kind of answers your question. I went on a tangent on that a little bit, but CallRail is a really good tool. And I said kind of you can make that number by lead source. If you're running ads on Facebook and Google and Twitter and Pinterest and email, you can have like a dynamic number for each of those. So you can really get granular and see the quality of leads that are coming through each of your marketing channels. And it's pretty affordable. I think pricing is not that much. Yeah.
What's it called?
So CallRail. Yeah. CallRail.com. So for like 30, 45 bucks, you can get a pretty solid amount of services. The $45 one, the dynamic number, is really the one you want if you want to have multiple numbers for multiple lead sources. But yeah, that's CallRail. Okay, what's next? Let's go back to the presentation. All right, so we talked about that. Oh, one other thing we can talk about is filters. So we're coming back to analytics now. One thing you're going to want to make sure you do is you don't count conversions for stuff that you're doing or your team is doing. That's really frustrating. You may optimize and spend more money on a keyword that one of your team members is using to fill out a test to contact form. So what you want to do is come into your analytics, go into your settings, your admin settings, come over here to this filters section, add filter, and you can add a filter for traffic coming from, so filter type, exclude traffic from an IP address. So what you would want to do is any computers that you consider staff computers or your computer, your phone, or your home computer, do a quick search like what is my IP? You guys know how to do that? That's the IP address for this computer right here. You just copy and paste that IP address into the filter, and then your traffic is, none of your conversions or traffic inside of analytics is going to show data from that IP address. Make sense? Follow me? Great. All right. So at this point in your ad journey, you've set up conversions. And that is the most important thing. Hands down, without that, it's not going to be super good for you at any rate. So let's continue forward. So we talked about ads.google. We connected analytics to the ad account. We imported conversions. We either added or decided not to add other conversions like e-commerce stuff, phone calls from ads. What's next? Keywords. This is usually where people start with AdWords. They think, Google Ads, I gotta come up with keywords, right? And as you guys just saw, that's usually it's a misstep. Your first step should be set up all your tracking first. But when you are ready to get to keywords, here's a couple tips on how to strategize that. First, look at your business. I would run a list for any services or products that you offer. Each one of those services is going to be its own campaign. You may have 4 or 5 campaigns specifically for one service. And I'll give you an example. We do a lot of work for restoration companies, like water restoration, fire restoration, storm damage, that type of stuff. Each one of those services is its own campaign inside of AdWords. Water restoration, flood damage restoration, it's its own campaign. Residential services versus commercial services, those are 2 different things. And really they have their own set of keywords associated with them. So the first step, and before you even start doing any research in keywords, put a list together of the services that you want to advertise. In fact, that's how we build out services for our ads. Our first question to the client will be, what services do you want to advertise? How many of them? Because that's how we're going to charge, because we're going to build out all those campaigns based on the service. Then you can start doing some keyword research. So let me show you a tool that you can do for that. So let's jump back into our AdWords here, or Google Ads, forgive me. And you come up to this little tool icon, and you come in here to planning, you go to the keyword planner. And there are other fancier tools than this. Like you could use SEMrush, and you could use like keyword, used to be one called Keyword Ninja or something like that I used to use. But for most stuff, we found, after doing this for a while, that the keyword planner is decent enough. You don't have to get super fancy for most businesses. So you come here to the keyword planner, discover new keywords, and you type in your phrase. So let's say water damage restoration. Include brand names, You can or you don't have to put in a website. If you have a landing page that's rich in the type of keywords you want to advertise as a service, you can put in your landing page here, and the results on the next page will be a little bit more targeted for you. But we're just going to put in water damage restoration, get results. What this kind of little tool does is it gives you search volume and kind of budgeting and pacing. So it'll tell you this is how much it's generally going to cost to be on the top of the page, and this says $25 over here for water damage restoration. It'll tell you the high range, so it kind of gives you a range. Now, we think that these numbers aren't super accurate. They're kind of a gauge, but if you took this to the bank and considered it truth, it'd probably be off. Because of the optimization stuff I'm going to show you later, usually we're able to beat those numbers with some really simple optimization stuff. But those numbers can kind of give you an idea of how competitive and how expensive your phrases are going to be. And you get a ton of ideas. So look at all these ideas: water damage, water restoration, ServPro, that's a brand name of a water restoration company, 911 restoration, so on and so forth. So what we use the keyword planner for is coming up with ideas. If we're not familiar with an industry, or like having writer's block or whatever, we come here and we say, all right, let's come up with 10 or 15 variations of a keyword, and we can look at which ones are actually being searched. Because what you don't want to do is target a word that isn't searched at all. And there's probably a conversation we can have about long tail keywords, and we won't have that here today because we don't do a whole lot of long tail stuff. You guys know what long tail keywords are? Have you ever heard that before? Essentially, this is like keywords that they're less commonly searched, but can be more specific and potentially less expensive. But for most services and most businesses, we don't even mess with long tail keywords because the top 10 or 15 are generally going to be just fine for the business. And I would assume the same for most businesses, for you guys too. Something to note with the keyword planner is that if you don't put in a location, this will give you data on all of the United States. So if you're saying, hey, I want to look at water damage restoration, what's common in Las Vegas specifically, you're going to want to make that designation inside of the keyword planner, pull out United States, and then chances are it's still going to be the same stuff, but depending, at least with water damage restoration, but depending on where you're at in the country, there may be different ways to search for things. So you don't want to be running a search for the whole entire United States. If you're in Cali, they got a certain way to talk, right? Anybody from Wisconsin in the Midwest? They got an accent, right? There you go. Spent some time there, lived in Wisconsin, and they all say big and that kind of stuff. So they talk about things differently, and that nomenclature may have an impact on the search terms. So make sure, long story short, make sure your location is set. All right, keyword plan. That's where you are. Let's flip back over here to the presentation. Let's show you a keyword silo. So before I show the keyword silo, my advice, I mentioned this a second ago, only do about 10 or 15 keywords per service. And you're going to see why that's important and why I'm giving that advice later. But you know, what I hate to see when we take over accounts is that we open up like an ad group and there's like 100 keywords in it. Because that's just like, there's a way easier way to target that many different versions of the phrase, and it has to do with match types, which I'm going to show you. And if you have a lot of variance in your ad groups, you're going to lower your quality score, which is going to make your ads more expensive. And I'm going to show you about quality score in a second, but the point is that don't load your ad groups with tons of keywords. What that boils down in the planning process, only list 10 or 15 of them for each service. It'll pay off what you're on. So let me show you an example keyword silo. What I would do once you're doing your keyword research, you're in keyword planning, you're saying, okay, I like these keywords, I got 10 or 15, but I need to put them somewhere so I don't forget them. What I would do is just put together a little keyword silo. And this is like a super basic one. I've seen ones that are really complicated, where they have like the competitive matrix on here, they've got search volume, they got search volume per month. For me, keep it really simple. Keyword, how many monthly searches it gets. Each service has its own thing. I'm not operating on a Mac, so I messed this up. But, oh geez, let's just flip to this page. There we go. So the way I've done it is I just do a different tab for each service, and then I have the top 10 to 15 keywords I'm going to run with, and I put them inside the keyword silo. You know, where a keyword silo could be helpful for you is if you have lots of services that you eventually want to advertise, but you only want to start with like 2 or 3 of them right now, and you don't want to do the research again, put together a keyword silo, save it in the drive, save it as a spreadsheet somewhere, it'll come in handy later on. But it's as simple as that. You know, so anytime you see somebody say, oh, do you have a keyword silo? It's that easy, just put it on a spreadsheet.
So I have a question so in my case, right, for a product, would it be 10 words per product or just 10 words for the whole site, for example?
I would do it per product.
Per product?
Yep. Yeah, I would definitely do it per product because it's going to relate to the quality score. You want your ad to be super relevant to that search term. So if somebody types in, you know, travel lotion bottle, or if there's a certain type of 2-ounce travel lotion bottle, that ad needs to say that phrase that person is searching for needs to be the exact same phrase, and that's related to the product. You may have 5 or 6 products on your website. You don't want all those in the same ad group. It's going to bash your quality score. So you want to have them siloed out like that. And think back to what I said a second ago too. If you have residential services versus commercial services, those are really 2 services, and I would break them out because you're going to use different words to describe residential versus commercial.
Yeah, Chris, I don't know if you're going to talk about this later on, but one of the important thing here when they research is the negative keywords. Like I said, the commercial and residential. If you don't do commercial, add that as a negative keyword because you can lose a lot of money. You know,
Yep.
if you don't do those kind of things. Like I do sell car wheels, so I don't want to, you know, bike wheels or bicycle wheels or toy wheels to show up on my ads. You know,
Yeah.
so I always start from the negative keywords too. You know, and also I think they also have like adult stuff like you can remove from results. So yeah,
Yep.
be
Great
careful
point.
with that.
Negative keywords, essentially what Manny's talking about is that you can tell AdWords to not show your ad for certain phrases. So if we think about water damage restoration, a common one for us is people searching for phone damage. My iPhone had water damage, how do I fix it?
Mhm.
And somehow somebody's clicking on an ad for house repair that has a water damaged iPhone. Ask me why, I have no idea why somebody would click that ad, because they're in a hurry, right?
Yeah.
Something, or they're 12, I don't know. But,
Fingers.
you know, something. So what we do is we put iPhone in the negative keyword list, and it stops our searches from showing up for any phrase
Yep.
associated with iPhone. I consider negative keywords an optimization strategy, so I put that in the optimization section. There's a way that we kind of do it, and I'm going to show it to you guys. So in a little bit. But great point. All right, let's come back to the presentation. Talked about keyword silo. Next, account structure. So my advice would be when you're designing your campaigns and you're naming your campaigns, you should have an organizational naming structure. If you're organizing your campaigns based on service, your campaign should be named as a service. What we do is we name our campaigns based on service and the match type for the keyword. So it's probably hard for you to see this, but I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. And these are our campaigns. We say this is a service, it's water damage, and the match type is phrase.
Mhm.
I'm going to show you how we do what these match types mean, phrase versus broad versus exact in a second. But when you're coming back through here to your ads account and you're making optimizations, you're looking at things, and when you're looking at your analytics and seeing the data come through, you're going to want to know which campaign specifically that is. And if you've got to name something different for every single one of them, it's going to drive you crazy. You won't remember things, it'll be bad. So my advice would be have an organizational naming structure. It doesn't really matter what it is, just have one, you know? So I think with this section, what I'm going to do is just kind of walk through some settings inside of ads here. So let me zoom back out here. Boom, boom. And what I'm going to show you is generally how we set stuff up. And there's probably an argument that could be made about maybe a better way to do it. I would be open to that argument, not today, but these are generally the settings that we use on our accounts. So I'm giving you kind of the secret information on how we do things. But hopefully you get some value from it. You'll set these settings when you create an account. As soon as you start your first campaign, it's gonna walk you through a series of screens. It's like, how do you wanna do this? How do you wanna do that? What I'm gonna show you is behind the scenes how these settings are played out on our accounts. So, campaign name, we talked about that. Right now it's paused. The goal, we never select a goal. There's options for goals. You can tell Google, I want to optimize for sales or leads or website traffic. We skip that one. And you can. You can say, launch an account without a goal in mind. And the reason we do that, and I'm going to rant here for a second, is that Google is not very good at optimizing Google Ads accounts. That's our opinion. That's my opinion. If they call you and they try to give you advice on how to bid, how to structure your campaigns, that type of stuff, throw it out the window. That would be my best advice to you, because what Google is doing, their people that are on the phone that are kind of walking you through this process, their goal is to get you to spend this money as fast as possible and as much as possible. So their optimization tactics are designed for your ads to reach the widest audience it can and to get as many impressions as possible, and that stuff costs you tons of money. So I say, I don't want to listen to Google. I know what I'm trying to do. Don't try to optimize the accounts for anything. I'll optimize it myself.
Support also, it's terrible. I don't know if you had good experience with them, but
I have in one instance, and maybe this is helpful. When I had a client launch their account, they never had an ad account before. Google made the calls and was like, hey, we want to help you set up. And it's like, oh, he's like, should I do this? I'm like, I'll do it for you. I'll kind of secretly listen to their conversations. I'll pretend I'm part of your company. Turns out it was pretty helpful, and here's what it was helpful with. They helped set up the conversions and the analytics linkages. So if you launch a new ad account, and you get those calls from Google that are like, hey, we want to get you started and set up, what you should listen to, and what you can get some free labor from, is having them connect to your e-commerce setup. They'll connect your analytics. They'll help you set up goals, and they'll set up goals inside and conversions inside of ads. So both analytics and ads. That's the best help you could possibly get, because you may spend 50, 100, 150 bucks on a freelancer to do it, or 10 hours of your own time. If you have a new account, or even if you have an established account you've never done the help from Google before to set things up, they may do it for you. But as soon as they start telling you about how you should bid or how you should set up an AdWords Express account, tell them, no, I'm good. Just don't listen to it. Your chances are they're going to waste money. Yeah, we don't even use Ad Express accounts. AdWords Express, I don't even know if that's a thing that Google does anymore, but we don't use them because those just like, they don't have as many options, and they'll just spend your money so fast. So, bring this back to what we're doing here. Goals, I don't select one.
do you do display networks too?
We do display. I wasn't going to cover this, I actually have a note at the end to say if anybody has any questions about display networks, we could. I was going to focus mostly on search.
Okay.
So locations. Let's talk about that. Well, I skipped over networks, so we'll go back. What we're talking about today is all about the search network. Google Ads can actually help you advertise with display. So what you can do is you can run like a banner ad on Google's display network, which is their like thousands of websites and applications across like all the multiple websites aside from just Google. You can pop up an ad on a game or some other partner website that has Google Ads approved through there. That's the display network. You can also use Google Ads to advertise on YouTube. That's your method to do it. And that's all decided here in this network section. Search has so much value, and really where we think you get the most conversions is through search. So I wanted to focus on that. If you guys have questions about display or YouTube at the end, I'm happy to answer whatever I can for that as well. But that's what networks are. Locations.
Chris, do you include your partner networks with the search?
Do we do what?
Do you include their partner networks, or do you just do Google search?
We just do Google search.
You left the box checked, that's why that.
No. Thanks, good catch. It's another way to waste money. Let Google do that. No. Oh well. This is our demo account. I'll go back and fix it anyways. Thanks though. Yeah, so search partners is like other kind of search engines that Google searches come up on. That's like, I have no control over that. I can't see it. It's kind of weird. So anytime I get a weird wishy-washy feeling about it, don't target it. Targeting search, and that's it. Locations. My advice would be to try to target zip codes. Okay, that would be the way to go. Let me kind of show you what this looks like inside of an actual account first. So let's go to here. There we go. So in this particular case, we're running cities because this is like we use this account to kind of build out others. This is our template. But when we meet with a client, we say, okay, what's your service area? They may say San Francisco. Well, what zip code is in San Francisco? We try to nail it down to the zip code exactly. And it really plays into optimization later on. Because what you're going to see is that you can see which zip codes are producing conversions for you. And you may want to adjust bids, adjust budget, based on your most profitable zip codes. If you just say all of San Francisco is what I want to target, that's all you put in there, there's no opportunity for optimization. You're getting conversions from San Francisco, well, no duh, right? Which parts of San Francisco you're trying to determine. What you can also do is you can do like a radius, so if you don't know your zip codes and you really don't want to go that way and you want to just try to do a whole area, you can do a radius, but here's how I would suggest doing the radius. I would do, let's like type in Las Vegas. I would do a 1 mile. Actually, let's do it around the zip code, it'll look cooler. Do a 1 mile radius around the zip codes. My advice with radius or radii is keep it tight. Don't do a huge 20-mile radius around something. If you have that big of a service area, set up multiple radiuses around the spots in tight circles. So 1 mile would be your way to go for this one. Let me actually, you know what? Let me just delete these so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. So radius, we'll do 89141. We'll do a 1 mile radius around it. We're going to say boom, target. So this is our 1 mile radius in 89141, which is Southern Highlands here in town. Then what I would do is do 89141 again, and I would do a 2 mile radius around it. Same thing again, 89141, 3 mile radius. And you could expand this out to 5, 6 miles. What you're doing with that is you're giving yourself a chance to optimize later on. Because what you're going to see here in a little bit is you'll be able to tell where your conversions are coming from. Are they coming from the 1 mile radius, from the 2 mile radius, or the 3 mile radius? And based on that, you're going to say, well, I want to spend more in the 1 mile radius or the 3 mile radius, whichever one's converting for me best. See what I said about conversions? It's all about conversions. Unless you're tracking that, you won't even be able to tell what locations are actually producing for you. So this is kind of how we do radius targeting. Like I said, zip codes are better because you can just nail it down exactly to a zip code. An easy way to get zip codes is take a look at your orders. So chances are if you're doing any type of online ordering, even if you're doing ordering at like a POS system, you might get some billing details. You might be able to see where your actual purchases are coming from down to the zip code. That's what we've done is we've looked at zip codes and we said, all right, let's load those all into Google Ads because that's probably where your best customers are coming from. This is the customers that you already have, right? So that's a good way to get zip codes. Another way, if you don't know zip codes off the top of your head, is I'm coming back to my cop out. Zip code map, Las Vegas. There you go. Pretty sweet. It's pretty easy. That's what I do every single time. Because we do advertising all over the nation. I don't know anything about Alabama, so I gotta look at a zip code map almost every single time. You can do it with counties too. You do county targeting as well. So if you have a large service area, you're serving like a quarter of the state or 10% of the state, and you don't want to get down to zip codes, but you know that this county, this county, this county, this county, you can do that as well. But you want to get as granular as makes sense because the optimization is what's going to matter later on. You guys follow me so far? I didn't lose anybody in that, right? Cool deal. Okay, so we talked about locations. Next, let's talk about ad rotation. So where are we at here? Let's go back to settings. This is one that is actually kind of hidden that not many people know about.
Just one quick question back
Yeah.
on locations. So when you set up one zip code on that specific campaign, are you excluding all of the other zip codes? So there's no.
So you could, because Google's data is kind of fuzzy.
Exactly.
So is it really in that zip code, those people? Most of it, yeah. But if you really don't, so great point. I actually had a note to talk about exclusions. So let's flip over to locations. Let's come in here. What you can do is you can exclude locations. That's this excluded section. And if you know that you want zip code A, but you definitely don't want anybody from zip code B, maybe it's a competitor that's there, and you're gonna spend way too much money trying to win over those people. Maybe it's just a part of town you don't want to advertise to that doesn't make sense to your customers. You can type in those zip codes and make sure that you're not targeting any traffic within that zip code. Is Google's system perfect? Probably not, but it's pretty close, I would guess. But the excluded zip codes, excluded counties, what you don't need to do is if you target a county or zip code, you don't need to like say, exclude, we found an account one time just recently, they wanted to target like a certain city, but then they excluded China and they excluded Russia and all these things in there. It's like technically, yeah, I guess you're overkilling a little bit, but if you type in a location, generally your ads are only gonna show in that location. Unless you get like, nah, I don't wanna go down that rabbit hole. I was gonna talk about like IP proxies and that, we won't go down that way. All right, so that's locations and that's excluded locations. We'll come back to this later when we talk about optimizations. All right, ad rotation. So this is one that often not a lot of people know about, but can be useful for optimizing your ads, your ad copy specifically. So if you want to test out certain ads versus other ads, what you may want to do is come in here and turn this off, or turn it to do not optimize. Because what Google does by default is they say, we're going to run your best performing ad no matter what. So whichever one is getting the best clicks, the best conversions, we're going to show that one more often. Because what you may have, let me show you, is like what we do is we have 3 ads in any ad group. So any list of keywords has 3 ads associated with it. What Google does by default, it says we're going to run ad A because ad A is getting the most clicks. But if you say, well, I want to give a true test to ad version A, which is ad version B, and we don't have that thing switched off, if ad A is already if Google is already selected as the winner, ad B is not even going to give you a fair chance to provide a fair test, right? So what you want to do is come back into your settings for this campaign and turn your ad rotation to non-optimized. You can eventually turn it back on, but that would be a tip for that. So that's kind of like high level stuff. If you're really trying to test out different ad versions.
What are the metrics they use for that? Is it time-based, or the number of ad impressions before they just to determine which one is the best? You understand what I'm saying?
Click-through rate,
The
probably.
click-through rate.
Yeah.
But I mean, is it after they display 10 ads or 50, or is it after 3 days or a week before they start optimizing which ad they choose?
Good question.
Who knows? Yeah, or is
Who
it-
knows? I think they probably
In your experience, what have you seen? Is it a couple days or a week? or-
almost, instantly.
Almost
Within a day or two, you're going to start
Okay.
to see someone pull that. I mean, if there's clear data.
Yeah, because it depends on the area, right? The industry.
It depends on the industry. It depends on the relevancy score of the ad.
So it's probably a blend of volume and a few other metrics, and they just
Yeah, probably
put
a
their
few things
fancy
going on.
algorithm to work. And
If I knew how Google's algorithm worked. Go ahead.
The click-through rate organically for your website, does it help your paid ad as well?
So,
Like, what is that?
indirectly, good question. So, we'll touch on quality score here in a second, but since you asked it, I'll go into it for a second. Where the click-through rate on your normal organic stuff will help you is determining whether or not that page is relevant. If you're ranking high in your search rankings, since you're number 1 or number 2 or number 3, chances are that page is relevant to whatever that keyword is. Let's say it's apple farm or whatever. If you're running a page about an apple farm and you're number 1, that page has a high relevancy. If you're running an ad now for apple farm, chances are that page is going to help you get a good quality score. Are the two impacting each other real time? Not really, but you can get a good indication based on that.
Yeah, in my case, I have good conversion when I run an ad on page that I run well. Because I think it's a psychological thing, The person say, oh, this person shows up there, and then it shows up here again, and then they go to my
I know you got a lot more to talk about, but on that point, I'm curious, if you're already ranking number one organically, is there any extra benefit
Sure.
to advertising for it and actually paying when most people click on the number one free rank anyhow? I mean, what's the balance between like
Yeah.
people clicking on a paid ad because it's really at the top, or clicking on the number one organic search?
It's about being above the fold.
Yeah.
You know, if you're number one in the ad, and you got the map pack, and you're number one organically, that's a big slap in the face to your competitors.
Yeah.
You're like, what up? I'm number one, right? That would be the advantage. We do that all the time with brand campaigns.
I see big companies do it all the time. It's kind of,
Yeah.
to me, I mean, I have a different mindset than a lot of customers, but if you're Salesforce and you search for Salesforce and you're number one, why is there an ad too? Because
Well,
like,
you'll
you
be
know.
number one anyway, because you're
Yeah.
searching for
Yeah, so-
Salesforce.
But I understand, it's like, it's almost like acing out your competitor from getting that spot.
It's a competitive thing, for
Yeah.
sure. And there's a couple, we'll dive this tangent for a second. We do it all the time for branded keywords. So if you're, InNEVation Center, you may want to bid on InNEVation Center as a keyword for a couple of reasons. One, you want all that space. Two, the ad, if you use your extensions properly, you can get a lot more information in your listing. You can get site links, location, reviews, phone number, all kinds of stuff, which you can't normally get in a normal search listing. And there may be people bidding on your keywords. So not probably with the InNEVation Center, but it happens with restoration companies, it happens with service companies. Somebody may be like, all right, I'm gonna bid on that keyword and try to place there. Now you can go and tell Google, hey, that person's not supposed to use my copyrighted name, and you can jump through all the hoops to get Google to stop them, but it's kind of hard to do. You might not get it done, and that person can still find a way to do it if somebody else can do it. So it's kind of like a way to compete.
Yeah, and you're gonna pay a lot less than anyone else, right? So-
Yeah, you'll pay pennies. It's worth it. And your conversions are typically really good from that campaign. If somebody types your name and they click on your ad because they typed your name in, the likelihood that they're going to convert down that channel is way higher. So your cost per click is way low, and your cost per conversion is also really low. So it's not really a bad idea to ever do it, because you're going to make money on that campaign almost every single time. But great question. Good tangent. All right, ad rotation. We talked about it. What else am I supposed to talk about? Bidding. Okay, so here's another one that Google's gonna mess up for you. They will tell you to do auto bidding on your campaigns. So let's just do it to start. It'll be fine. Famous last words. We never do auto bidding on any of our campaigns ever. We only ever do I shouldn't say only, but typically we do two types. We do annual CPC, and we do target impression share for the top of the page, or at least the top of the results. The reason is that manual CPC gives you the chance to come into your ad, your keyword list, and you can adjust. Right now this campaign's not set up that way, but one of the columns here will be your bid amount. And if you have a manual setup, you can adjust your bid amount per keyword. And when you're thinking about optimizations, there may be keywords that are converting well for you, and you're gonna wanna increase the bid there. There may be keywords that aren't as valuable for, but you still would show up if you could get it for half off a normal click, you take it, you can adjust your bid there. If you set your campaign to be auto bid, Google will just bid on everything inside of that, and no matter what. If it's search volume, if it's whatever, they'll just get you as many possible impressions as possible. So we typically stay away from auto bidding. We only do manual cost per click, but it's a lot more time to do that. You gotta go into your ad account every week, spend an hour looking through your keywords, making sure you're kind of updating things. Google does help. Where they are helpful is, you can't see here because it's like a demo campaign, but they'll put a little red notification in one of these boxes that'll say, hey, you're 50 cents below top of listings, you should increase. And that's probably some good advice. If you want to try to get a little bit more out of that keyword, you can increase it by 25 cents, see what you get. See if you get more click-through rates, more impressions, so on and so forth. So Google is a little bit helpful there. They don't leave you completely out of the dark. But like I said, manual is a little bit harder. Another way to do bidding that isn't as hard and is advantageous is by target impression share, absolute top of the page. So what this does is it says that you're willing to bid up to your maximum. In this case, we have $50 to be at the top of the page. So you want to be that number one position, which is it's a pretty bold statement to make, right? If you want to be number one, that's cool. You want to pay for those clicks, typically they're the best ones, and they're the most ones. So it's not a bad place to be. You can also target impression share top of results page, so you can be in that top 3. Sometimes you'll see ads in like the lower part of the page or off to the side or something, and they just don't get as many eyeballs or as many clicks. Although Google will say that you had an impression if somebody loaded the page. So you can do top of results, you'll be in that top 3. Not necessarily number 1 based on your maximum, but you'll be in the top 3. Make sense? Cool. So we talked about bidding. Next up. Campaign organization. So let's flip over here to the presentation. I don't even know why I'm opening it back up every single time we leave so much. So this kind of goes back to the naming thing. You know, if you think about how AdWords or Google Ads works, you have a campaign that has an ad group within it. You can have multiple ad groups. Each of those ad groups has a list of keywords. Those keywords in that ad group tie to an ad, which also has its own set of extensions and all this other stuff that can be connected to that individual ad group. So having a nomenclature design for your campaigns, super helpful because it's going to get granular. Also having a general idea of how many ad groups you want in each campaign, probably a good idea too. Keep in mind that your budget is determined at the campaign level. So this goes back to why I said a service should be its own campaign, because as a business person, you need to say, I want to dedicate a certain amount of budget to this type of wheel or whatever, but not this one. Maybe I don't want to spend that much budget on this one. I'll spend $25 a day, where I'll spend $50 a day over here. So organizing based on service is a good idea. And I kind of showed you that list before. This is how we do ours. Each campaign is titled a certain way. If you click into that campaign, the variation on that keyword is an ad group. That ad group has a certain amount of keywords in it, and we only ever do about 10 to 15 per. So I wanted to make a point about that just to kind of get the idea going. You got to be organized, right? If you're not a super organized person, you got to force yourself to do it, because things will get muddy later on. Now let's talk about ad groups. This is where we talk about quality score and relevancy. This is really determined at the ad group level. What impacts quality score? So what that number is a Google generated number based on the algorithm they have that says how relevant your ad is to a search term. So if somebody types in local pizza place, Google is going to list the ads with the highest quality score and combination bid. So the highest bid and the highest quality score first. If you want to list first and you want to be relevant to your consumers, you got to have a high quality score. Where a quality score can hurt you is you can bid, you'll spend more on phrases. So if your competitor has a more relevant ad and they have more relevant keywords, their ad is going to be cheaper than yours. If you have like a completely obtuse ad and an ad group full of weird keywords. So where you want to, my advice to keep quality scores high is make sure that your keywords all are, let me just show you. This is kind of like running here. So actually this part is useful. So I'd say limit your keywords to specific phrases that include your primary keyword. So in this case, fire damage is the primary keyword. So we say fire damage restoration, fire is the main one. So fire restoration, house fire damage restoration, excuse me, I messed it up twice. Fire restoration is the base keyword here. All of these three of these keywords would be in the same ad group because fire and restoration is what we're trying to target. But there are variations to it. Does that make sense? Kind of? So let me kind of show you an actual keyword list. So zoom in here. So water damage is our base keyword here. So water damage restoration. Flood damage, this one I would expect to have, this would be a variable in this case. Are we getting good relevancy here? Maybe, maybe not, because flood is kind of related. Back in the day, I say the day, this is like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe not even that long. People used to be all hyped about this SCAG strategy, single keyword ad groups. And And what they did is they put one keyword in an ad group and one ad that pointed to one landing page with that exact keyword on it. And the idea was to try to inflate the quality score. Well, Google got a little bit smarter and their algorithm got better, and now you don't need to be that granular. You can make this work, and flood and water damage, they're kind of related enough where Google's still going to give you the passing quality score. But that would be an outlier, right? Emergency water damage, flood damage restoration, flood damage services. Now, these keywords in here are associated with an ad that says these words exactly. Water damage repair, water and flood damage, water and flood restoration. So the point is that you have a keyword that correlates exactly with the phrase inside of the ad. Go ahead.
Would you consider it best practice to always use landing pages with AdWord campaign?
100%. That's the other part of quality score and relevance, is that Google will actually look at your landing page and say, is this relevant to the search? And that's why branded keywords, if you try to run a keyword campaign on your competitor's name and you direct someone to a website that has no mention of that name, the quality score is going to tank because that is just, it's not optimized there. Google's reading that going, there's no brand name, there's no nothing, it's not relevant. So absolutely, you want to have a landing page that correlates with the ad campaign. So for you, that would be a product page, right? The product page would probably be a great place to send ad traffic. For a service industry, you want to have a landing page for your service. What you don't want to do is send someone to the homepage that's got all of them listed. Although you'll be better off in sending them to some random page, you're still not in an optimal position. You want to have an individual page for each individual service. And really, it's more than just a game you're playing with AdWords. You're making things easier on your customer, and that's what Google is after with this quality score. They're trying to make a decision on what's easier for searchers, because that's their main value proposition. We make search work. So you've got to try to make your experience work for whatever that search is, and the way you do that is providing a relevant landing page experience to an ad that's about whatever it is you're putting on your landing page. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so don't mix services in the ad group. So if you do commercial and residential, don't put them in the same ad group. Make them two different ad groups. If you have, different products, don't put them in the same ad group. I think we kind of beat that horse to death, but that's kind of the advice there. All right, we're doing, oh man, we only have 30 minutes left.
Well, 20, because we need to wrap up at the.
Cool, I'll bust through this. So the next thing is about match types. And then we'll talk about ads, we'll talk about extensions, and I'll show you some optimizations. So the next stuff moves pretty quick. So there's 4 match types inside of AdWords. There's broad, broad modifier, phrase, and exact. Broad is exactly that. It is a match type that says if you type in a word, it's going to bring anything possibly related to that term into the, you could show up for a search for anything. So if you typed in water damage restoration, you could show up for an ad for iPhone water damage. That would be in your broad campaign. Broad modifier is a little bit different. This one's really useful. What those plus signs do is it tells Google that any combination of those words works, and they don't necessarily have to be in that order. So you could type in water damage restoration, all with plus signs in front of it, and somebody typed in restoration damage water, you'd show up for that search. So this goes back to the idea of having like a keyword campaign loaded with hundreds of variations. Don't need to do that. Use a broad modifier keyword thing so that you don't have to like type in 50 different variations of the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Phrase, in these things here, the plus signs and the quotation marks, this is how you would type it in your Google campaign. Phrase is kind of like broad modifier, but it's more exact. So anything you type into those quotation marks, you're saying this phrase has to be in the search exactly. So if you put water damage in the quotes, somebody would have to type water damage exactly how you typed it. Now there could be other things around that phrase that Google could pull in. So if you put in water damage, they could still pull out restoration, repair, local, now, emergency, and those would be related to your phrase. They pull into that campaign. But phrase is saying this phrase has to be there no matter what.
Are misspelled words also important to put in there?
It used to be. You used to want to type those in there, but now Google will show them up. So in your broad modifier, and even your phrase, they'll kind of throw a search in there for you. What you may find, and I'll show you in the optimization section, is that you may want to add that as a keyword if you're getting it hit on it a bunch of times. You may want to add it. But exact is exactly that. Nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. Whatever you put in those brackets, this search is showing up for that. Nothing on the sides, no misspellings. Misspellings aren't going to show up in exact. This is exactly what you're going for there. Oops. Ads. Let's talk about ads a little bit. They should include the keyword. So we mentioned that a second ago. The ad headline has got to include the keyword. No matter what, always put your keyword in there. This improves relevance. Your quality score will go up. Your click-through rate will go up. Your cost per acquisition will go down. Your CPC will go down. You'll spend less to get more. Your description, that doesn't really impact quality score. A lot of people think it does. It doesn't really. Use your description to sell your services. Put your value propositions here. Put what you think is the most important for someone to know in that description. Use it as an opportunity to do that. Same with URL structure. It's not really something that's going to impact your quality score directly, although it can make your ad more relevant to the person searching. So if they see that the description is about the same thing the headline is about and the URL is the same thing, then that'll kind of trigger in their mind that, oh, this ad is about whatever it is I'm searching. So these blue sections, that's a headline. This is the URL. This is the description. So the headline is where you want to put the keywords always. Description, URL structure, don't necessarily need to have that in there, but it's probably a good idea for most cases. Extensions. This one's important too. Let's flip over here. Let's look at extensions. So there's multiple types of extensions. There's site links, calls, locations. You can do call outs. And I'll just kind of briefly explain what each one is for you. So a site link extension is a phrase you can tack on to the ad that links directly to a page on your site. It doesn't have to be optimized for the keyword. It could be for cool stuff like emergency services, get a quote, contact us. Reviews, that's a good one to put on there. And these extend the size of your ad. So instead of being 2 lines, now your ad is 2.5 or 3 lines with these site link extensions. A call extension, we talked about that one earlier about setting up your conversion for it. You can put a phone number on the ad that shows up in mobile devices, and when somebody clicks it, you make a phone call directly to the business. As long as you have your conversion set up inside of the conversion tracking, you'll be able to see which keyword they used to get to that call, which is a really valuable thing, right? Location extension, this one people miss all the time because they don't know how to do it. All you need to do is you need to have a Google My Business account. You need to set up that Google My Business account with the same email that you're using for ads, and then click this little plus button, select the location extension, and follow the steps to connect it to it. It's just going to log you in to make sure it's the same account. You might have to type in like a verification code or something like that. But the location extension is sweet because it'll show your address, it'll show your hours. I think they used to show reviews. I don't know if they show reviews anymore, but it'll also give you a chance to show up in the map pack. So now Google is doing this thing where they'll run an ad inside of the map listings, and unless you have a location extension connected, you won't even show up there. So it's important to be there. It's important to have the location extension, and a lot of your competitors won't do it. So it's just another way to be competitive. Now let's talk about optimizing. This is like the stuff. So everything we talked about is how to set things up, structure things, so that by the time you get to this point, your life is easier, you can be more effective. Negative keywords are a big part about this. So what you want to do when you're optimizing an account is you come into your account. I'm going to try to do this zoomed in. Oh, let's do this. Showing. So we'll come in here to this one. Let's see if we've got enough search data. We'll come into your keywords. Now, we would see here, we go, okay, we've got some clicks, we've got some impressions, but what are people actually typing in to the search engine? Look for this little search term thing, and this shows you exactly what people are typing in. Let's see if I can extend the date on this. Get a few more in here. particular campaign doesn't have much. Let's try water damage stretch. So these are the actual terms that somebody typed into Google that triggered your ad. What you can do from here is either add these to your account or select them as negative keywords. So let's see if we got anything in here that would be a good negative keyword. Not really. But let's say we wanted this one to be a negative keyword, water damage leads. Actually, this is a decent negative keyword. You select it, add as a negative keyword. I usually set them up for the whole campaign because I want to make sure that my other ad groups in there aren't pulling the same keyword. Although, if you had like residential and commercial in the same campaign but different ad groups, you might not want to put a commercial keyword as a campaign level. You would do it at the ad group. But then you would save, and that is a huge optimization thing. So a few steps that are super easy, but now no searches will show up anytime somebody types in water damage leads. And you could see that you could spend a lot of money. In this case, this account spent $6.52 2 times because somebody clicked on that ad. So for 13 bucks, they wasted on a lead that is never going to convert to anything. We found an account a couple of weeks ago that I guess there's this game called something fire, something like that. Kids were searching like fire damage calculator, and it was triggering all of our ads, and they were clicking on our fire damage ads. And we wasted, we didn't waste, but like in that case, the client account had a bunch of dollars that just were spent on this like game thing that had nothing to do with a house burning down.
Yep.
But if you don't do that negative keyword thing, you could be spending money on keywords that you're just not even trying to target. It's a big deal. What else is important? Bid adjustments. So we talked about all that stuff before about location and locations is a good example. So right here inside of the location section is a thing that says bid adjustment. If we look here, there's conversions for each of these locations. These are too broad. San Francisco's too big. But if we drilled this down to the zip code and we saw that 89141 had a conversion but 89074 didn't, we could say increase bids on this particular location by 25% or 100% or whatever. Or if we notice that conversions or clicks are really expensive from a certain location, we can decrease the bid in that spot. So, and you can do that with all sorts of things. If you're running your ads on a schedule, you're running a Monday to Friday, and you set up different schedules for every day of the week, you can optimize that bid adjustment per day, per hour, if you set it up in here. So it really gives you the chance to optimize the account, to spend money where it's being effective and spend less where it's not being effective. But this goes way back to what I was saying in the beginning, is that if you don't set up your conversions initially, you don't have the opportunity to do this. So you may be looking at your keywords and all your locations and going, well, stuff is happening, but I don't really know where it's coming from, and I don't really know how to make it better. So I'm just kind of stuck in this weird grind. This is,
Just parenthesis here. I think that's why it's so important for you to understand your niche. Because, for instance, in my case, when I sell wheels, people go Saturday and Sunday shopping around, and then they convert on Monday, and then the other days goes down. So I know that as a fact, and Google doesn't know that. Like Google Expert doesn't know that. So because I know my industry, I can do this kind of stuff and optimize for my stuff. So yeah, learning about this is important, but learning about your audience, your industry is super important too.
Yeah, think about your services. Think about how your customers are buying. That's a great example. You know that on Friday, Saturday, Monday, or Saturday, Sunday, Monday, those are hot days for you. You're gonna maybe want to bid increase on those days. And instead of going in and manually doing it every time, you can just say, hey, on those days I want to bid 25% more, 50% more, 100% more, or whatever. Or on other days of the week, I want to spend less. And this kind of bid adjustment's available like all over. You can do it based on device. So if you're able to see that, hey, mobile devices work better, computers work better, tablets work better for conversion, I'll spend more in that area. This may be really effective for lawyers and financial advisors. You may find your conversions come from people when they're looking at the desktop and not necessarily the mobile device. So you may want to make bid adjustments on that. But that's a big one. If you do negative keywords, you bid adjust based on only conversions. You only increase bids on stuff that was converting, you'd be miles ahead in optimization on your account. Hands down. It's that simple to run an effective account, but it means you gotta set up your conversions initially.
Quick question on click-through rate. What do you consider a good click-through rate? I see lots of 3%, 2%, 4%. What's your goal, or what do you consider a successful campaign? I know it's gonna vary a little bit.
Yeah,
just
it
in general.
varies. I mean, generally 2-3% is pretty solid. What you don't want to have is a click-through rate of like less than 1. And it also depends. It depends on e-commerce can have really low click-through rates because of how competitive things are. But really, that comes down to your bidding structure and your ad design and your keyword selection. So if you're selecting keywords that have a lot of traffic and you're bidding to be top of page and you're getting a ton of impressions but no click-throughs, something is wrong with your ad because you should be eating up that budget and the ad shouldn't show, so you should have a higher click-through rate. There's probably data, like if you did a search for an industry that said, hey, what's benchmark click-through rate for this? It's hard to take that data into account because of niches and because of location, and you'd have to find some study of click-through rates in Vegas specifically, and really the best thing to do is look at your data, make a reasonable assumption, and try to improve every single week or every single month. So it's a hard question to answer, honestly. Something that you should do is measure your cost per acquisition and use that to determine your ROI. So this is where companies mess up, is that they don't measure effectively inside of their campaigns and they spend way too much, or they're not spending enough on stuff that's actually valuable. So I put a couple of like this little note here because I think it's important. So the way you get your cost per acquisition, you take what you're spending and you divide it by your conversions. So if you spent $100, you had 2 conversions, your cost per acquisition is $50, right? And depending on the industry, that may be very good. It may not be very good at all. The way you would see if it's good is you got to figure out your ROI. So you take the revenue you got from that service or that product, and you subtract your cost per acquisition or your average cost per acquisition, and you get a rough ROI number. Now, that's a rough ROI number. It's not necessarily true because you have to factor in profitability. Like if your cost of goods sold are $90 and it costs you, your ad spend was $90, or your ad spend was $100, and I'm messing up the math. But the idea is that if you're bringing in less profit than you're actually spending on that, that's not good either. But when you walk down that road, you also have to consider lifetime value. Is that person going to come back to your business? Are they going to be a repeat customer, or are they a one-time customer? And how does that impact profitability? Maybe you only spent $50 to get that lead the first time, but it's actually going to generate thousands of dollars for you over time. Reviews, and that's what we learned in marketing school, is like lifetime value, and it gets complicated. I forgot a lot of it because I partied a lot, but I know it's important. And then my last point is, we're in edit mode here, is hiring a pro. Some pros and cons for you. You're going to save time if you hire a pro. You can typically get better ad performance as long as that person knows what they're doing. And you can rely on years of experience to get things done that maybe you don't have, especially if you hire someone who's knowledgeable of your industry. The cons is that it's hard to find people who actually know what they're doing. The things I showed you right now about conversion setup and optimizations, 80-90% of people out there that are selling ad services don't know how to do that. They spend money like crazy, and they're just as good as the Google advice. So it's hard to find someone that actually knows that stuff. So hopefully I've armed you with the knowledge, and when you're interviewing people, you can say, hey, how would you optimize the account? And they can show you that. You go, okay, you're good. I'm willing to spend my money there. It can be expensive. That's another con. For someone who's good, you're talking like a minimum $400 or $500 a month just to manage, even the smallest amounts, because it takes hours every week to do this stuff. Large accounts could be thousands of dollars. It could be tens of thousands of dollars, depending on how big your business is. And you have less control. So that person's going to make decisions about how to advertise your business that you're going to have to take, a little zoomed out perspective of. As long as you're okay with that, it'll be a good idea for you. Resources for you. Upwork's pretty good, although now they charge so many fees that what you're actually getting as a rate on your freelancer is inflated. because they take 20% of the revenue. So if you paid an influencer $1,000, they're only getting 800 of it. So if I were an influencer, which I do this all the time, is I inflate my price by 20%. You know, so knowing that about Upwork, you can haggle a little bit on that platform. There are other platforms too, like Reddit for Hire is a free one. I recently used this one to find a subcontractor. It's a little more difficult to manage bids because you're just in like a comment feed, and you're like dealing with personal messages. It's weird on Reddit, they haven't quite figured that one out, but there's a decent pool of digital marketers in that particular subreddit. Guru's pretty good. Craigslist, I've sourced people off there, but it's weird. You might get some weird stuff. And now Craigslist charges, so it's like, yeah, to post a job, it costs like
$20?
a couple bucks, something like that. I know it used to be $5, and now it charges.
How long does it add up for, at least a week?
I don't know, a couple
Depends how
weeks.
many people's posting in that section.
Used to be free, and that was awesome, but now it costs money to get the weird stuff, which is strange. Another one I didn't mention was Fiverr. Fiverr's pretty good for that little stuff, like if you want someone to come in and set up your e-commerce tracking, jump on Fiverr, type in Google Analytics e-commerce tracking, and you'll find someone for 40 or 50 bucks. And they'll just knock it out. They do it dozens of times a day. That can be a good resource too. But yeah, that's it. That's the whole thing. So there's my information. If you have questions or whatnot, I'm happy to share my information. We'll get these slides posted. I did record it, so I'll put it on YouTube and post it to the group as well, so you'll have it. But questions, thoughts? We only have like 1 minute.
But we do, yeah.
How important are reviews and like your NAP, for those that don't know, like your name, address, phone number, like your reputation, your citation scores and such, when it comes to your SEO and your ranking, your boosting?
So when it comes to ads, that location extension is super important because it gives you more space in the fold, and you can fold in reviews, you'll be on map pack and that kind of stuff. When it comes to actual buyer decisions, reviews are mega important. You know, the first thing we talk about with everybody is, with any of our clients, is, are you doing any type of reputation management? Are you
That's what I've
soliciting
been, so
reviews?
that's why I asked that question.
Well, I have it because what's the first thing you all look at when you're looking at someone to buy? Reviews, you know, so they're super important. And to have them in multiple platforms too. Yeah.
How do you use the Google Search Console?
The Google Search Console, great thing. You just go to search.google.com. No, that's normal search. I just do Google Search Console. I think they renamed it.
Yeah, before it was Webmaster Tools, now it's Search Console. That's it.
There it is search.google.com. That's where you go. We can spend a lot of time talking about it. It's really part of an SEO conversation.
Not paid ads.
It's not paid ads, no, but it can be helpful to show you where you're ranking on certain things, how searchable your page is, how mobile friendly your page is. That mobile friendliness is going to matter to the quality score. So it's a standard tool that every website should have. Absolutely. You have a question?
How did you learn how to do this so well?
YouTube University, man. No, I have a degree in marketing from UNLV, and I learned marketing concepts there. And then, you know, digital marketing was it's like a Wild West thing. You know, just 5-7 years ago, that a lot of it, the tactics were just doing it. You know, so to be honest with you, I wasted a lot of clients' money figuring out how to do stuff. So I don't do that anymore. But you just learn it. You go on, you see who's making something work. You find a forum, you talk about it, and you just kind of learn what works and doesn't work over time. But there's tons of information. Honestly, there's a whole argument in the marketing community about the effectiveness of a degree. I lean on the side of being pro-degree and pro-college and that type of stuff, but there's a valid argument that says you can go online and find tons of information on how to be a digital marketer, and you can be pretty good at it without spending a day in university. Yeah, good question.
Yeah, you added there, do you do remarketing, and any tips on remarketing?
Remarketing is great. You do that through Google Ads. So to give you the 2-second version, you go into analytics, you gotta set up an audience. So you would kind of tell analytics, anybody who visits this page or anybody who visits my page at all, I want to start tracking those people. Then, as long as you have your analytics connected to AdWords, you can say, run a display ad, one of those banner ads, to people on websites all over the web for my service based on where they interacted with my website. It's very commonly used with e-commerce for people that visit a product page. You ever seen those ads for like Amazon on whatever? They're like showing you what you searched on Amazon or whatever e-commerce website. That's a remarketing ad. You can do them on Facebook too. Almost every advertising platform has them. You can do search ads as well, kind of, with remarketing. But it's all controlled through an audience and analytics, and then targeting that audience instead of AdWords. But it's a good source. We use them. They can get good conversions if you're targeting the right people, and you're not just targeting general website traffic. You're trying to target the people that have interacted with 2 or 3 pages or something like that. You can get decent conversion rates from them. Display ads are the same way. So you design an ad, you design a banner, you go on to Google AdWords, and instead of picking search terms, you pick like affinities. So you'll say, I want to target everyone in Las Vegas that's into golf and outdoor exercise. Run an ad to all the websites related to that. You can get granular and pick certain websites if you want. You can say, I want to run it on Golf Magazine specifically. You can do that. And you could probably figure out a way to make that effective for you. For us, we don't really do that because it's like, it's a whole other monster of things that you want to try to do, and conversions aren't really super great. We do a lot of work for service industries and a little bit of e-commerce, and the display network is just, it's a lot of impressions, not a lot of clicks, not a lot of conversions, and generally we don't do it for that reason. But if you're running like an awareness heavy campaign, you want to let everybody know about you, a display ad might be pretty valuable. And really affordable. They're cheap as dirt. They're the cheapest thing you can get. But yeah.
Do you have campaigns that it's like on autopilot, right, after you optimize it, or you keep looking at it?
Autopilot, I mean, sometimes, but generally we want to touch an account. We'll touch an account every week. You know, we'll jump in there for 15 minutes at the very least, just to make sure that we're not running negative keywords or keywords that should be negative keywords, or that Google has changed something and now our bidding is weird or something like that. But
You guys running any type of automation on bidding, like scripts?
yeah, we use a good question. This is another secret weapon. We used to do scripts, but now we use shape.io. And that's a really cool thing. It's expensive, you know, it's like hundreds of dollars a month, but what you can do is you can say, I want to bid a ton during the day to take advantage of all the daily traffic, but over the course of the month, I don't want to spend any more than $500 or $1,000. What Shape.io does is it allows you to set a monthly or a weekly budget and still allow your ads to run in a way that has you show up for the maximum amount of searches. If you did that without Shape.io, you'd run up your spend. You could triple or quadruple your budget in a week if you spent that way. So having the 2 systems in place allows you to kind of maintain budgets, but also take advantage of surge times and that sort of thing.
What other services are you tying into your AdWords or ads account?
Do Shape, we do CallRail, we use This, which is a reporting dashboard, which allows you to look at like Facebook, analytics, AdWords, you know, AdRoll. I'm familiar with that one, but it allows you to tie it all into one dashboard. That's kind of neat.
So this you give to your client or just for yourself?
We use them, and then we usually roll every client account into them. We pay for agency accounts. We got like hundreds of people in there, but yeah, we use those ones. Shape one's really important. It's a secret.
All right, last question.
Shape.io. Dash this is good.
Dash list?
Dash this.
Dash this.
Dash this. That's just a reporting dashboard. And then it's all Google products, so analytics, ads, and everything that goes along with that search console. So once.
I'll just go with one last statement. I've been to a lot of meetups over the last couple of years. Stellar presentation, good job. Thank you very much.
Good job.
I hope you guys found value. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, we can continue the conversation downstairs, but yeah, we have to leave right now.